I was home alone one night for a reason I don't even remember. All I know is that my entire family was gone. I was about 15 or 16 at the time. Back then, I was a big gamer. I was obsessed with StarCraft. Most weekends I'd stay up late playing, sometimes all night. This was right before the COVID lockdown started. That night, I was in my bedroom on the first floor, completely locked into my game. Then the doorbell rang. Twice. I hurried to the door, not wanting to lose focus and risk losing the match. When I got there, I called out, "Who is it?" like I always did when I was home alone. A weak voice answered from the other side. It sounded like a woman, but I couldn't make out what she said. I opened the door, leaving the storm door closed between us. Standing there was an older woman with a big smile on her face. Her hands were behind her back. Through the door, I asked, "Can I help you?" She said she needed to use a phone and asked if she could come inside. Since I was little, my parents had drilled it into my head, never let a stranger into the house. Not even if it's a woman. I felt awkward, though. I didn't know how to turn her away politely. So I told her the library a few blocks away might have a phone. Deep down, I knew it was closed at that hour. I just wanted her to leave. Her smile didn't fade, but her tone suddenly changed. "That's very rude," she said. To turn away an old lady asking for help. I froze for a second, then replied, "My parents don't allow strangers in the house. It's a house rule." I started closing the door slowly, saying sorry, as I did. She didn't move. She just stood there, still smiling, still staring at me. And somehow that same smile suddenly felt much more menacing. I locked the door and went back to my room, trying to shake off the unease. Then the doorbell rang again. I wasn't going back this time. There was no way. Everything about her felt wrong. Maybe she was confused, maybe she wasn't all there, but something inside me said to stay away. I turned back to my computer and tried to focus on the game. But not long after I sat down, I heard a tapping on my window. It was a sharp, metallic sound. Like something metal was hitting the glass. My desk faced that window. The blinds were down, so I couldn't see out, but I already knew what it probably was. My room was the only one with a light on in the house. The thought that the same woman had walked around to my window made my stomach twist. I muted my computer. I didn't care about the game anymore. The tapping continued, steady, metallic. That was it. I left my room and went to the living room, sitting there in the dark. I was trying to listen, trying to stay calm. Then the doorbell rang again. She was harassing me now. I told myself maybe she wasn't dangerous. Maybe she was just confused. But when the bell rang again, and again, I finally decided to open the door, just to tell her I'd call someone for her. When I opened it, though, there wasn't a woman this time. There was a man. He looked about 10 years younger than her. Through the storm door, he asked, "Have you seen my mother?" I told him yes, she'd come to my door earlier. He apologized, saying she had dementia and had gotten out of the house. I felt a wave of guilt. Maybe I'd completely misjudged her. But then he asked if he could come inside. Something about that question made me uneasy all over again. Why did he need to come inside? I told him the same thing I told the woman, that we could talk through the door. Then I said I thought she might have gone into the backyard, since I heard something out my window. He thanked me and walked down the path. I watched him turn toward the side of the house, and I thought he went into the backyard. A few seconds later, I went to the back window to check. There was no one there. Not him. Not his mother. Nothing. I felt cold all over. I locked every door and window and went to bed early that night. I left the TV on to drown out the silence. Sometime later, as I was dozing off, I heard that same tapping sound on my window again. The same metallic clinking. I remembered the man. The son. Maybe he was still out there. I decided to look, just to be sure. I got up, walked to the window, and lifted the blind slightly. standing outside was the old woman. That same fake smile stretched across her face. And in her hand, she was holding a kitchen knife, tapping it gently against the glass. I dropped the blind and backed away. My hands were shaking. Then the doorbell started ringing again. Over and over. 4 times in a row. The tapping stopped. I didn't move. I didn't answer. I just waited. Eventually, everything went silent. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called my dad and told him what happened. He said I did the right thing, that it sounded exactly like an attempted robbery. Maybe that woman really did have dementia, and the man was really her son. But it all felt too coordinated. Why did he want to come inside? How did he know she'd come to my house? Why didn't he ever go into the backyard like I told him to? Too many questions. And every one of them makes me believe that if I had opened that door, something terrible would have happened. This happened a very long time ago, so some details are blurry. But the important parts are burned into my memory. It was the last day of school. I was in 4th grade. 4th grade was the final year in our elementary school where kids had to be picked up by their parents. 5th graders were allowed to walk home on their own. My mom always picked me up after school. That day, my friend Dennis and I had a playdate planned to celebrate summer break. Dennis wasn't in my class that year, but we had been friends since kindergarten. He was dismissed from a different hallway. After the bell rang, we lined up single file and walked to the exit. Outside, by the door, I waited with my teacher Miss Blue, looking through the crowd of parents for Dennis's dad. Then I heard a voice. Tommy! Tommy! I turned and saw a man waving at me as he walked closer. He introduced himself as Dennis's uncle and said he was there to pick me up. I walked over to Miss Blue and said, "I'm being picked up." She asked, "Where is he, sweetie?" I pointed to the man. He waved at her, and she nodded and dismissed me without a second thought. I followed him through the crowd. He spoke fast and jittery, stuttering here and there. His pace was so quick it was hard to keep up with my backpack on. As we walked, he explained that Dennis's dad had to work late, so he was driving me to their house instead. When we got to his car, a dark red hatchback, it finally hit me. Where was Dennis? Why weren't we picking him up too? When I asked, he looked back at me and said Dennis was already at his house. I was shy around adults, especially people I didn't know well. Even though I was confused, I didn't press him for answers. I just sat quietly in the back seat. The drive was longer than it should have been. My house was a 5-minute walk from the school, but this drive felt like 10 minutes or more. We were in an area I didn't recognize. When we pulled up, the house looked normal from the outside. But once we stepped inside, it felt different. He locked the door behind us. All the curtains were shut. The house was dark, except for a single dim lamp in the corner of the living room. It felt like night even though it was still day. I asked, "Where's Dennis?" He smiled nervously and said, "Oh, I think he's downstairs playing video games. Wait here." He disappeared into a room. I heard a door open and footsteps going down to the basement. My heart started pounding. I walked to the front door and tried to open it quietly. It wouldn't budge. It was locked with something that needed a key. Panic set in. I still held on to a small bit of hope that Dennis might actually walk up those stairs. But deep down, I knew I was in trouble. Then I saw the phone on the kitchen wall. I grabbed it, dialed 911, and whispered, "Please come to this house. I've been kidnapped." They heard me. I didn't say another word. I hid the phone under a towel in the corner of the kitchen, leaving the line open. I rushed back to where he left me just as I heard him coming back up the stairs. He called my name. "Tommy. Come down. Dennis is down here." Silence. He called again, louder this time. When I didn't answer, he came up fast. "Are you okay?" he asked. I felt sick. Terrified. I whispered, "Can I go home?" His friendly expression disappeared. His eyes changed. He stepped closer, slowly, and then grabbed my wrist hard. He started pulling me toward the basement door. I screamed. He yelled, "I'll let you go if you stop and behave." I stopped. I listened. He dragged me down the stairs. The door slammed shut behind us, and I heard the lock click. The basement was dark and unfinished. Concrete floor. One support beam in the middle. One light bulb hanging from the ceiling. It was the kind of room people have nightmares about. I could hear every footstep from upstairs. He walked around for a long time. Then he came to the basement door and called down, asking if I was hungry. I said no. I didn't want him going into the kitchen and seeing the phone was gone. He locked the door again. I sat in that basement with my heart pounding, praying that someone was coming. Then I heard it. The doorbell rang 3 times. Then came loud bangs. Police bangs. I didn't scream yet. I waited until I heard shouting from outside and heavy boots on the floor above me. I ran to the stairs and yelled at the top of my lungs, banging on the door. The lock turned. A police officer pulled me out and rushed me outside. There were at least 3 police cars. I told everything to the officers while we waited for my parents to arrive. The man was brought out in handcuffs. That was the last time I ever saw him. My mom arrived soon after, crying uncontrollably. There had already been chaos at the school when Dennis's dad found out what happened. The man wasn't really Dennis's uncle. He was a work associate of Dennis's father who found out about our plans and used that chance to take me. I don't know how he even knew what I looked like. I never asked for more details after that. My mom went to counseling with me for months. She never forgave Miss Blue for not verifying who picked me up. And I know this for sure. If I hadn't called the police when I did, I would not be here telling this story. It was New Year's Eve of 2020 and all of us were ready for this horrible year to be over. My friend Logan was throwing a house party. I arrived early to help set things up. I secured a spot to sleep in his parents' room, meaning I could drive to the party and drink without worrying about driving home. His parents obviously weren't home for the night. Most of our close friends came, plus a bunch of Logan's friends who I didn't know. The party was fun. At midnight, everyone screamed Happy New Year and cheered their drinks. After that, people slowly started leaving, heading to other parties, bars, or home. As the night went on, the crowd thinned out until it was just our close group sitting in the living room, drinking and talking. It was probably around 3 a.m. when the last of the guests left. Soon, we started hearing this occasional sound. At first, we didn't pay much attention. It was a faint creaking noise, and we figured it was coming from the fridge or something. House appliances make weird noises all the time. It was just me, Logan, and Cody at this point. Cody was half asleep on the couch. Eventually, the sound became too frequent to ignore. We got up to check it out. We went to the kitchen, but it wasn't coming from there. Then we realized the sound was coming from the basement. Logan opened the basement door, and the creaking sound grew clearer. I told him to go check what it was, but he refused. He called out, "Yo, who's down there?" The sound stopped. We waited at the top of the stairs for about a minute, completely silent. Then we decided to go down together. We both grabbed knives, thinking that was a good idea, though we were drunk enough that we probably would have hurt ourselves instead. We reached the bottom of the stairs and looked around. The basement wasn't huge. It had a couch, a TV, a bar, a table in the corner, and random junk. It was pretty messy at the time. We checked every corner and every spot someone could hide. There was no one. Then we tried to figure out what could have made that sound. I noticed a rocking chair near the wall, so I sat in it and started rocking. It made the exact same creaking sound we'd been hearing. Logan and I locked eyes. Every hair on my body stood up. We ran up the stairs faster than I've ever run in my life and slammed the door shut behind us. We tried to come up with a logical explanation, but there was none. Logan kept the basement door locked for days until his parents came back. There was no living soul down there, but something had been moving that rocking chair. It used to belong to his grandma, who had passed away long ago. His mom kept it for sentimental reasons. I've never experienced anything like that before or since, but it still sends chills down my spine.